All right, well, let's continue the Spyderco random retired models review thread, I guess, or string of videos. Um, that's kind of what I'm into these days. I don't really get too much excitement out of the Koenig Ariuses or the tactile turn Bexars or whatever. The Vero engineering stuff. What else? Just I don't know. A lot of the stuff. Does a lot of stuff for a lot of companies anymore, and there's all these titanium frame lock flippers, which I guess is what you're looking at here, but I just don't get into a lot of the stuff that's coming out these days. I've sort of reverted back. It's almost like how I am with music. The more I see the new stuff coming out, the more I sort of gravitate toward the old stuff. And that's kind of what I've been doing. I mean, the Ayub that I just did the video on, yeah, it's a new knife, but it's based on a pretty old design from, I don't know, 20 years ago or so. And I had the Magnitude, which I did a video on. It's an older retired Spyderco. Now I have this one. And yeah, I'm kind of reverting back, I guess, to where I put my money and who I buy from and what I buy. So yeah, so this is my review of the Spyderco Domino bento box exclusive. So what makes this an exclusive from bento box is the blue scale, for one. A lot of their exclusives have a blue scale or blue scales. They did a military in this, a pair of PM2. I don't know. This one and those two are the main ones that I know of. And then the other part that makes this exclusive is the steel, which is CTS 204P, which I think is pretty cool. Don't see it on Spydercos a lot. Primarily on this knife, the Knife Works. They have a pair of 3, a PM2, I have the military, and then they just recently did a Shaman in 204P. And then they made the Southern flippers in 204P. So it's kind of cool to me because you don't see it as much as like M390 or 20CV. They're pretty much analogous, but it's just nice to have something a little bit different. So this is a titanium frame lock flipper, which yes, I was just complaining about, but this one to me is a little bit different. Spyderco doesn't make a ton of flipper knives, and the Domino, it's kind of nice. It's really cool because it's kind of like a Mannix, but in a flipper version with a different style lock. But you can see it looks a lot like a Mannix in some ways, especially the blade shape. It's kind of like a leaf style blade shape. This is an Eric Glesser design. You can see his mark there at the top. Yeah, so just some specs. It is a 204P steel. It's a flipper. It's a frame lock flipper, and it does have a steel lock bar insert, which you can see there. This has another Lynch deep carry clip, which this one's actually the same as the Ayub that I just talked about, so you can see that one. And you can see this one on here. So it's like their industrial flamed look. It's pretty cool. So this one is wearing a deep carry clip, otherwise it would have the typical Spyderco spoon clip, which is fine, but it's not deep enough for me, and I carry this in shorts, and I don't really want much of my knife sticking out of my shorts pocket. So I swapped it over to this. And let's see, specs, weight-wise, this one's probably around 4 ounces or so. It's pretty lightweight with the titanium and the G10. This side does have a liner on it. I think it's titanium too, you can see it there. And size-wise, it's overall probably, I need to get a ruler for these videos. I'm sorry guys, I'm kind of estimating here. Actually, hold on. Instead of continuing to estimate, I'll just do this. Yeah, so it's at an angle there, so maybe it looks a little different to you. About a little over 7.5 inches total. You got about a 3-inch cutting edge. Blade length's about 3 1/4, and the height in your pocket's going to be this width here, which I'll just kind of hold it up. About 1.5 or so. About that. I'll start using the tape measure. So yeah, I mean, it's a pretty middle of the road knife just in terms of the size and weight. It's a pretty nice, easy, lightweight carry. I have carried this one. It does carry well, especially with the winch clip. The flipper tab's not too protrusive. I don't know if that's a word. It doesn't protrude too badly. And, you know, it's not overly long or a strange blade shape or anything like that. So, and with the way it's designed, it'll sit in your pocket like this. So it'll be sitting, just imagine this is your pocket. So this will all be angled toward the outside of your pocket, which is kind of nice. So yeah, that's kind of some of the specs for you on this. This is a G10 scale, the blue side, and it's a cool look. It's a different blue than you see on any other Spyderco, and I like that they do that. I like that they do so many exclusives. Let me think. So carry is strong on this guy. I think it's a great carry knife. Blade steel is about as good as you can get. This thing does slice like a laser beam. I mean, it's got the full flat grind here. You can see I did put my own edge. I don't know if you can see that on here, so it's not perfect, but it's pretty sharp. I did that because it was missing the tip when I got it, so I just wanted to give it back its tip. Yeah, so it cuts really, really well. I've cut some cardboard with it, opened some packages, stuff like that. No complaints at all. Let me think about this. Lock up. Yeah, it's nice and tight. Oh, this does have it has aftermarket bearings in it. So they're called taco bearings. I don't know, probably some of you guys have heard of them. But if you just search for taco bearings, you'll find his website. He does them for like the Southern, some ZT models for the Domino, the dice. So yeah, I did replace those. It flipped reasonably well when I got it, but these are actually known for some, oh shoot, I just lost the term. It's kind of like where the washers will sort of bend inward. Let me think how to describe that. So as the bearings continue to spin on the washers, they'll wear a track in the washers, and then the washers will, instead of being flat, they'll start to bend in. And I actually saw it on this model, on this knife in particular. And I've heard that happening with Dominoes. I had one a few years ago, and I don't think it had happened yet. So I don't know if this one had been flipped a lot or what, but yeah, it was starting to happen. I think the Advocate might have had similar issues. So I just went ahead and swapped out the bearings. And you can see it flips pretty nicely. It doesn't like the light switch flip. It's pretty unreliable if you do it that way. But if you do the push button, it's almost 100% consistent. So yeah, it's just the detent on this is just a little bit weak, and that's pretty common with Spyderco flippers. It's kind of a shame, really. They've made a few over the years, and they've spanned multiple years, and for some reason they just can't get their detents dialed in. I don't know what it is, but the Domino is always one of the better ones. The Sliver Axe is terrible. The Mantra and Positron, some of those aren't very good either. But yeah, so it's pretty well dialed in. I mean, it does have the aftermarket bearings, but even with the factory bearings, the Domino's always been pretty good. And you can also use the Spidey hole. You can Spidey flick it and all that stuff. Of course, you actually have to do it. And you can open it like a normal Spyderco as well, which is nice. So it really has 3 methods of opening, which is pretty cool. So yeah, so that's the Domino. I guess I should talk about the hardware a little bit. I think it's all I want to say it's all T8, which is really nice. Very easy. Oh, besides the clip screws, these are T6. So it's very easy to tear down and maintain. And I should have mentioned the IU, I think, is T6, which is kind of a bummer, except for the pivot, which looks like a T8. If you watched my last video, you can note that down. So yeah, the hardware on this is great though. I've taken this down obviously to change the bearings, do some cleaning, stuff like that, and it's very easy to disassemble. There is one thing that I wanted to mention if you get one of these, and these are actually still in stock on Bento Box Shop, which is crazy to think about. They probably originally got them, I don't know how many years ago, and they still have these brand new. I got this one secondhand, but it's crazy to me that they still have them. But anyway, yeah, if you get one of these and you want to disassemble it, be careful because the pivot is actually D-shaped, but the amount that the pivot engages with the scale that prevents it from spinning is a very, very small amount. It's probably a millimeter or less of thickness, if you can imagine that. So the pivot's coming from this side into this scale, and it's D-shaped. This scale has a D-shaped hole to receive it, but this area where the pivot comes through, there's not a lot of material there to receive that pivot screw. Sorry, that's a washer. Or to receive the pivot, I guess. I don't know if you call it it's not a collar. It's like a Chicago screw kind of. It's the negative end of that. So yeah, there's not a lot of thickness there to receive that. So you have to be really careful, because what happened originally with this, when I took it down and tried to put it back together, is I didn't get that pivot all the way through into the scale. So the centering was off, which it's okay now. The flipping action was all over the place. It just was all messed up. So be careful if you do that. If you buy one of these and you disassemble it, just make sure that the D insert for the pivot lines up with the D receiver on this titanium scale. So let's see what else. I talked about carryability. I talked about cutting. The action's good. Fit and finish on this guy. It is a Taichung Spyderco, so it's really, really good. Besides the detent, which is a little bit weak, I don't really have any complaints at all. Blade's nicely ground. Nice jimping. G10 looks really nice. It's chamfered here on the edges. The titanium is done really well. You can see it there. Hardware's nice and shiny, consistent. Yeah, no complaints at all. Centering, obviously it's kind of hard to talk about on this one since it's been taken down, but it's pretty much perfectly centered. Might favor the left side just a tad, but yeah, that's about it. Getting to 13 minutes, so I'll try to cut it off here, but that's the Spyderco Domino Bento Box exclusive. Price. So I picked this one up for $175. I found it a good deal. But if you want to buy them new off Bento Box, they're like $260, $270. They're pretty high. You can find them on the secondary market for cheaper. Just check eBay or whatever. But if you like flipper knives, if you like Spydercos, I would highly suggest this knife. The ergonomics are really excellent too. You can see here, nice purchase for your thumb and index finger, and then the rest of your hand there. Or you can choke back and still get a 4-finger grip. So the ergonomics, like most other Spydercos, are excellent. The blade cuts really nicely with that full flat grind. Flipper action is not too bad. It's okay. If you don't like it, don't use it. Materials are really nice. So yeah, I would highly suggest this knife if you especially if you like Spydercos, but even if you don't, definitely give it a look. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did. So please subscribe if you haven't yet. And have a good weekend. We'll talk to you on the next one. See ya.